Hello, John Fisher. It's Father Marco here again on Friday afternoon, this time in the same place as before. Thought I'd just keep things the same for once. And this Friday, we're going to pause our reflections on the Apostles' Creed to talk about confession. And that's because, as I'm sure many of you know already, Lent is a time traditionally when Catholics are encouraged to go to confession. It's a time for renewal, it's a time for getting close to God again, for sort of starting a new leaf. So that's why talking about confession. And this is of course addressed more to Catholics than to anyone else, because confession is really something which Catholics do more than other Christians. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. So as I say, what is confession? So it's a time of coming back to the Lord. It's a way of getting a fresh start. We know that every once in a while it's good to have a really good bath or a really good shower to get clean. And if that's true for the body, that's true for the soul as well. So I encourage you, if you've not been to confession in a while, to think about going this Lent. And I especially encourage you if you feel that there's something on your mind, something on your heart, that's really weighing you down a bit. That's sort of something that you've done and you feel a bit guilty about it, and perhaps you've tried to just sort of forget about it, but it's still there and you still feel it. So guilt is really a sort of a symptom of sin, and sometimes what we try to do is we try to suppress guilt and hide it away and ignore it, but we're not really dealing with the problem, and that's where confession comes in, because in confession you tell God through the priest. You're not really telling the priest, you're really telling God what you've done wrong, and Jesus himself forgives sins. So he wipes that sin away, so that you're cleansed, not just psychologically, not just the guilt that's removed, but really that the actual sin is wiped away. You can make a fresh start. And I think it's important because, as I say, sometimes we try to suppress guilt, and that's not a good thing. If you fall down on the ground and you fall on your arm and you think you may have broken your wrist, for example, if you were to go to the doctor and you say, look, I've got this pain in my wrist and I'm not sure if it's broken, you'd be pretty upset if he just said, oh, well, don't worry, just take some painkillers and the pain will go away. And you might think, well, yeah, that's fine if the pain goes away, but I want to know if it's broken or not. And if it is broken, I want to get it fixed. And when we do something wrong, sometimes we feel guilt, and that's a bit like the pain. But unless we actually go to confession to get that sin forgiven and healed, it's still going to kind of be there, somewhere in our heart, somewhere in our soul, just sort of simmering away. And if we don't clean it, then what's going to probably happen is that sin is going to lead to another sin, and then the problem just gets worse. I don't know how you found lockdown. I found it pretty difficult myself, and one thing I've done to kind of help is to find a hobby, which for me, surprisingly enough, has been gardening. I never thought I would get into gardening, something which I always thought my mum and people her age do, but it's actually something I've taken up, and I found it quite enjoyable. But I was surprised the other day when I was doing gardening that I was digging up the soil which had lots of weeds in it, and I found this little stalk poking its head out of the ground. And I thought, right, I'll just pull it out. And as I started to pull it out, I realized that this little stalk wasn't just a little stalk. Underneath the soil, it actually got thicker and thicker and bigger, and then it led to this whole clump of just weed, which was there just draining nutrients from the soil. And I thought that's a great analogy for sin. Sometimes we think, little sins don't really, not really a big deal, not a problem, but actually they have roots deep down in our hearts that actually take nutrients and stop us from doing good. And so Lent is a bit like that. It's this time for getting out all those weeds and just having a fresh start. So basically over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to come in as much as I can, not very often I'm afraid because things are getting a bit busy, but I'm going to come in so that you have an opportunity to go to confession if you'd like to. There's obviously no obligation, but as I say, if you feel that there's something weighing you down, then feel free to come. Just to talk about two obstacles that are quite common that stop us from wanting to go to confession. The first is fear, really. Fear that I'm going to shock the priest, or fear that I'm just too embarrassed to mention that I did that. Well, please don't feel fearful. Most priests, I think, will agree with me in saying that we've kind of heard it all before, or we've done it all before, even worse. And so we're not easily shocked. Yeah, I've been a priest a year and a half, and I've already pretty much think I've heard it a lot. So yeah, I won't get shocked, at least, that's for sure. And then the other obstacle is that sometimes we worry that, oh, well, I don't want anyone to know in case they tell anyone, or there are any consequences. If I'm a drug dealer, I don't want to get arrested. Well, as you probably know already, confession is protected by what's called the absolute seal, which means that a priest cannot tell anyone, no matter what. If you tell a priest something outside of confession, then just like anyone else, the priest might be obliged to let somebody know for your safety. But in confession, it's different. In confession, it's really between you and God. And so the priest is just there as a bridge. So he can't tell anyone. So you can be absolutely sure that if you really want to unload your mind and your heart to God, you can do that safely in confession and nobody will find out. Because it's not about judgment, it's not about punishment. It's about you coming back to God, wanting to feel his embrace again as a father. So the option will be there for you in the next couple of weeks. You'll find out about the times from your teachers. With regards to exactly what to do when you go to confession, I won't go through that now. Basically, I'll put some links in this YouTube video to places where you can go to walk you through confession. And also, if you don't know what to confess about, there's a link. There'll be a link as well to an examination of conscience, which is a list of questions to help you to find out in God's presence with God, sort of what's been going wrong in your life and what you can therefore confess. So it's there for you if you want it. Otherwise, wish you a blessed Lent and a great celebration of Easter to come. Take care. God bless.